here's something I wanted to talk about. All the things that phones have replaced. Like, so to take pictures, do you just use like a regular camera then?
Yeah, right now I'm using my T5. It's a Canon T5 DSLR,
Mm-hmm.
and for the most part, it is not convenient, especially if you're working with an SO. It is going to cause problems because with the significant other, trying to get them to pose and all of that kind of stuff. Not to mention, depending on what you're taking pictures of. I'm a commercial driver, and there are certain areas where I need to get a photo to send back to the office about something. A DSLR is not going to work. It's just not. So the phone has to be used for that. But again,
Mm-hmm.
that's work related versus personal. Personal, I'm looking at an old Sony, like an old A7 or something like that, mirrorless, and that's going to be a little bit more portable. Just a couple of cheap lenses that you can probably buy secondhand and run that as my on the go camera versus a phone.
So there was an article today, Scotty. I'll post that when I can find it, about the Pi as a print server. But I was going to say that there was an article today about this guy that had brought back to life what's called a Web Anywhere watch, and I'll post that in the show notes right now. And it's a basically what it is it came out in the early 2000s, and it's a watch that you would hook up to your Windows 98 computer or Windows 95 or Windows 98 probably, and you would download 93 kilobytes of the internet onto this watch. And I posted the link in the show notes. And you can read the display, I think, is 10 characters by 2 characters. So that's how you would read the information that you got off of the internet. And when did this thing come out? 2001, I think, or 2000, something like that. 2001. And I thought, man, what a fucking ass beating it would be to have to read the internet with this watch, 10 characters by 2 characters LCD display. But at the time, I think it would be awesome to have something like that because we didn't really have web connectivity so much. It wasn't
Yeah, the
like
only
it is now.
technology you had in watches was calculator watches. And I
Right.
wanted one so bad.
So I thought this would be so cool. But I was thinking, this is just, of course, when cell phones came along, this was just like thrown in the garbage, I'm sure, by whoever bought it. But there was a lot of devices like this at the time that were, I think another one that I always think of is how much I love my like PMPs, they called them at the time, personal media players. Like
PDAs, personal digital assistants. I had the Dell
PDAs as well.
X51V, which was, a cell phone before cell phones.
Right. And I thought, I miss that stuff. Compared to a cell phone now, they wouldn't nearly be as convenient. But I see some people that are just like, let's put like this guy who are totally into finding this old technology, bringing it back to life and showing it off. And it just fills me with this big feeling of nostalgia of these gadgets and gizmos I used to use.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've always been technology minded. But before everything was interconnected, they had these kind of devices like my my personal media player. I think it was River or something made them, but you could load all these movies, MPEG files and stuff. You could have movies in your pocket, or music videos or anything like that.
Wasn't I talking to you about that during the New Year's show? Or I was talking to Mordency or somebody about that. It might have been you I was talking to about that.
Was it? Maybe.
We were talking about creating a device that was that did not have the problems of there you go. Okay, so it was
probably
Mordency
then. But what you were saying, Scotty, about the camera and stuff, it just struck me about how I miss these devices. And even though I would probably never use them today, but there was that whole era between, maybe through the 90s up to the early 2000s where all these devices were very prevalent.
Well, it's why the PSP and the PS Vita were so popular. Yes, they were a gaming system, but they were also an MP3 player, a movie player, everything else. You could even load Skype up onto them.
The PSP, that's another one. I used to read ebooks on my PSP and, watch movies on that. I would transcode them just to watch on my PSP and stuff like that. But are there any devices like that you guys missed or you remember with nostalgia or that you may have had before the whole digital connected age of cell phones and stuff like that? Or
I
is
think
it just me?
No, I liked almost like the Unix philosophy, right? I had gadgets that did things, specific
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, well, like
Um,
there's a lot of things that cell phones do now that took 100 gadgets to do in the 100 separate gadgets to do in the
Right.
past.
My PDA it just covered a lot of what my cell phone does now. I mean, like all of it. Ebooks, audiobooks.
But they were so simple in terms of, yes, they were capable and they would perform those tasks. But I think potentially one of the failings of modern technology is there's so many different ways to do the same damn thing. And it gets to be frustrating at times because there's something that was so gratifying about learning a PDA and how it worked
Mm-hmm.
and knowing the capabilities of it and then just sort of working within the confines of this device.
Or
right?
working to expand the capabilities because, like, pre Windows, I believe it was 8, Windows Mobile 8. Like you had this entire backlog all the way to Windows Mobile 1 of applications that were still usable. So you could do almost anything with one of those PDAs that you could do with a desktop, so long as you had enough RAM.
Yeah.
Now, also, I was thinking about like my very first piece of gadgetry like that was a dictionary, a digital dictionary,
Mm.
where I
They
don't know
still
how.
sell those.
Do they?
Yeah.
That's crazy. They would still sell something like that. I remember
It's
getting it for
little black and white
Christmas,
screen and
and it was
yeah.
just like blew my mind that the whole dictionary was in this device, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
You mentioned the media players, Sansa, if you've ever heard of those.
Oh yeah, loved.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just
I was thinking of exactly that, Eric. You had the
Yeah.
Sansa media players.
You
I
stuck
looked mine up. It was I got like the E250 that had the little screen on it.
Yep.
I could actually download video. Actually, at the time I had TiVo, I was able to download a video from TiVo and have it transcoded and put onto my little Sansa device and watch it. The screen was quite literally like that big.
Yeah, like
but
an
I was
inch
able to
square.
watch videos that I
did that too.
recorded that I downloaded from TiVo onto
But
the
wasn't
thing.
that a cool feeling though, that you could just have a device that
Yeah.
you could watch video on? It felt like the future, you know?
And
It was
Right.
awesome.
You will hear
Yeah.
Dan from Tilt.
His Sansa clip.
Yeah, the Sansa clip complain that he can't find a new one of the Sansa clip and all the old ones are dying, but also complain that all of your new MP3 players, because they do still sell MP3 players,
Yeah,
but the operating systems are just pure garbage.
they are. Oh,
On
you
all
That's
the
why
remember
you
new
put
ones.
Rockbox on it.
Rockbox? That's what I was about to say. Remember Rockbox? You could even
Yep.
play Doom in Rockbox. You know, it was awesome.
You can
And,
play Doom on a toaster.
Well, that's true, but it had like a bubble bobble game and just all kinds of cool stuff. Rockbox was the coolest thing for your tiny little media players. Is it still being developed? I doubt it. Probably not.
I'm sure
why?
it's still out there.
I'm sure you can grab it, but I wouldn't think it's still being actively developed. I don't know.
Right.
Did you ever use that, Scotty? Rockbox or any of those little media players like that?
I've used an old media player. I don't remember what the brand was, but the one thing that I remember that was so special about it is I could just load my data onto it and use it any way I liked, and there wasn't all these artificial walls limiting what I could do.
Oh
You know
my
what I
god.
mean?
This
The
was before
frickin-
those were erected, actually.
No, the Apple stuff, the iTunes store.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
That was so much garbage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I know what you mean. Like the early iPods where you had to go through the iTunes.
iPads as well.
Yeah.
iPads as well. And the thing is like the first gen iPad, I've got one that my son absolutely loves. The screen is great on it. You can't load anything onto it because none of the old iPhone or iTunes applications actually work anymore because they switched to online only. And so you can't have the software on your system and have it work.
Now, there are certain ways of trying to get around it. I've used KDE Connect to get around some of it. But even then, because there's no real file system where the data gets stored on it, everything's cached into one app, which you then have to grant permission to other apps to use. And Apple is, cracking down on what applications can access what other types of files. So if you do send in, say, for instance, a movie or something like that via KDE Connect, other applications may not have permissions to access it, or even from something like Nextcloud. If you use Nextcloud to bring it into the ecosystem, the Apple ecosystem, you still may not be able to share it everywhere you want to on the device.
So
Yeah.
Apple doesn't have just like a general file manager. I never had an iPhone, so I don't know. But they don't have like a file explorer for their phone where you can just.
They've kind of they made this like half measure where they finally do have what's you could call a file manager, but it's not like a file system where you can go and look at the actual structure. It's basically like Scotty's saying where an app has access to certain files, if you want to call it that, on the system. But it's not the same as like an Android where you can go in and like literally see the structure and just
I got
manipulate it.
Well, it's not basically.
So I had a friend who wanted to update their where they have it, an iPad Air or something like that. So, but they needed a larger amount of space to be able to download the update, to do the update. And I'm like, all right, why don't we just go on there and just start clearing out some files, maybe back some up to a external drive. But the thing is, I had no idea looking at it the way they have things set up. I couldn't tell in their little file manager what was on the machine itself and what was in the Apple Cloud or where anything is specifically, because it's not very clear. It just says you have these files, here you go. It doesn't say where they are. It doesn't say what the storage is in the device.
I gotcha.
On a side note, last time Rockbox was updated was November 15th, 2019. Rockbox version 3.15.
Well, that's a lot more recent than I would have thought.
Right.
I used it so long ago, and then I think the last time I used it was on a Sansa clip. You remember those? The little.
Yep.
And I bought that to take to the gym so I wouldn't be distracted by my phone. And then I think I lost it a week later. I don't know where it went. It's so small. But yeah, that was. I did the same thing Honky did. I would have a little Sansa. It wasn't a clip at the time; it was something else. But I would convert these videos on my computer to like that format, whatever it played, tiny, and then I could watch it on my. And it was so cool. It was like, oh man, I feel like fucking Dick Tracy or something. I get this tiny gadget where I can watch videos. Which, by the way, also. I didn't have this when it came out, but I bought it at a yard sale. Was a TV watch, and it was nice. It was black and white, and it had a wire with an antenna that you could hang up, and of course it wasn't a what do you call it, like an OLED screen or anything, but it was I believe it was LCD screen, and it was a watch on your wrist, and you could do that. Before cell phones and stuff like that, which I always thought was cool.
Yeah. Well, we had such a strange conception of, not strange, we had a completely different conception of futuristic technologies where things were still
most definitely, yeah,
where things were still separate devices, and the thing that nobody understood or got right was that we were all going to use one stupid device.
Exactly, yeah. Just think about Star Trek lore and all the communicators and tricorders and stuff they had, and